ISIS has demonstrated the ability to use the internet to get followers to commit acts of violence in their name. But lately they signaled a change in operations. They're going for a higher body count. They're going for greater shock value. They're changing the rules once again. Every law enforcement officer needs to be aware of this information because this could dramatically change how you respond in certain situations. Grab your seats. It's time for Counterterrorism Roll Call. Welcome to Counterterrorism Roll Call. I'm Holt Clark. I'm holding a hard copy of the online magazine Roma, put out by ISIS. This is issue 9, May of 2017. There's a reoccurring article called Just Terror Tactics, and I want to talk specifically about this issue's part 4, hostage taking. The first thing that you need to understand is how they define words. They define the word just, as in just terror or just terrorist, to mean justice, to mean it is right, that it is justified in what they're doing. So what we incorrectly call the lone wolf, they're referring to as a just terrorist, an individual affiliated inspired attack. The second word you need to understand is hostage. When they talk about hostage taking, it's not the traditional that we're thinking of. It's not a person who holds people captive for demands. No, they say it's to create as much carnage and terror as you possibly can, until Allah decrees it is appointed time that the enemies storm the location and succeed in killing him. So they're saying right off the bat, it's a suicide mission designed to kill as many people as they can. What ISIS is doing is coming up with a more efficient way to kill. Now, any terrorist attack requires 3 elements, those being motivation, means, and knowledge. You must have the desire to do it, you must have a way of getting the weapons to do it, and you must have a knowledge of how to conduct the operation. This article provides all 3, means, motivation, and knowledge, to the would-be terrorist who would read this. Let's start first with motivation. They're all about motivation. They spend millions of dollars, thousands of hours motivating people to commit these acts. The global jihadists have an extensive effort and array of ways of doing this. This article alone has more than 25 martyrs listed in the terrorist attacks they committed, and they're glorified. Multiple times they emphasize this is Allah's will. They specifically say that this is Allah's pleasure to kill, and you can escape Allah's wrath by doing this. They state the killing is a remembrance of Allah, this action of worship. Allah has obliged them to kill the Mashrikin and to fight the disbelievers who are close. Now here I want to show you this example from page 13 of this online magazine. This picture is captioned by saying they only fight the Muslims because they believe in Allah. So that is the propaganda that they're filling into the heads of the people who read this kind of a thing and other of their online propaganda. Now when it comes to means, they're talking primarily in this issue about obtaining guns. They talk about America and how easy it is to obtain a gun in America, and they even talk about the gun show loophole and the private sale of weapons in America. They talk about buying a gun in Europe and how in Europe there are much stricter laws, but because Europe is so close to so many combat zones like Ukraine, Syria, Turkey, that it's easy to get high caliber, fully automatic weapons in the underground. Now they do caution about police stings, to work only with people you trust and family members in obtaining these weapons. There's another method they list. They talk about robbing a gun store. You can do a smash and grab, steal a vehicle and drive it through the front door or front window and take as many weapons as you can, or surveil the gun shop, find out who the owner is, and follow them home and ambush them. Now they caution their followers that these people are almost always armed and they're usually well trained. So what you should do is just run over them with your car and take the keys off their dead body. Is there a gun store in your jurisdiction? Does the owner know about this? Don't you think they should? Now this same article, but the same issue, but a different article, there's kind of a little poster in the back. It's kind of, think of it as a terrorist pullout poster. I'll show it here on the board. It's about truck attacks. It talks about the ideal vehicle characteristics, something that has a high acceleration, a heavy weight, but a high clearance so bodies don't get stuck underneath it. They talk about how to acquire it, whether you want to buy it, rent it, or steal it. And they talk about the targets, large outdoor farmers markets, large festivals and parades, or just busy pedestrian streets. How many places in your jurisdiction popped into your head when I mentioned those things? Now, they also talk about the knowledge. They call it execution, and I think they take great joy in the two meanings of the word execution. But primarily, they're talking here about mass shootings and lurings. First, the mass shootings. They spend a lot of time with the ideal target. What building is best for taking hostages, they call it. A nightclub, movie theater, shopping mall, restaurants. They talk about minimal exits, ways to corral people into certain rooms. They talk about if you're a lone individual or if you're working in a team, which would be the best. And also how to use the building as a natural defense when law enforcement arrives. They talk about using the busiest time of day to get the most people, and when police are most often preoccupied with a special event. They tell their followers to keep some hostages alive as human shields when the police arrive. Now, they say use this busy location and round up the kafir, the non-believer. Gain control of them and then slaughter them. That's the word they use, slaughter them. And that's what they believe before the initial police response. Now, if you don't have a firearm, they've got a plan for you as well. They talk about using deception. Present yourself as harmless. Lure the targets to you. Put ads in things like Craigslist. That shows how much they understand us. They understand the use of Craigslist. They understand how we operate as a society, and they're able to blend. So put an ad in Craigslist for a job, but not something that would attract Muslim men, property for rent, or an object for sale, something to get them inside. Have a specific plan and a place to do things like disposing of the bodies, spacing out the time of when the people arrive, what kind of weapon you're going to use, what restraints, whether you're going to use zip ties or handcuffs, and how to muffle the sounds. Now, each one of those things sounds like it could be a complaint from a neighbor, whether it's a smell or a sound or screams or what have you. Now, these complaints could generate first contact by an officer who walks into something completely different than he and she is expecting. Now, the ultimate goal is wider publicity and more terror. Keep some victims alive and restrained. Even in this one at a time in the apartment, it's still a short-term operation. It's maybe one day. They're not trying to train mass murderers over a year's time. They want to get this known and have this to be impactful in the media. And that's the next step. They then tell their followers, now that you've done this or in the middle of doing this, notify the authorities. Tell them what you've done and state, I am a soldier of the Islamic State, or something similar to that. This statement needs to be a game changer. This statement needs to be a Rosetta Stone of sorts, a way of decoding who you're dealing with and what they're saying. So when they say, I'm a soldier of the Islamic State, or I pledge allegiance to the Islamic State or Al-Qaeda, they're changing the rules. They're changing the definitions. And they are in charge once they change those definitions of the rules. You need to change your response. You must understand the language, not just you. Call processors, the dispatchers, they have to know to let that officer responding know, this guy said, I am a soldier of the Islamic State, or he is claiming allegiance to Islam, the Islamic State. He is claiming allegiance to Al-Qaeda. That is something your officer needs to know. You need to change the way you're thinking about hostage taking in these situations. It's no longer hostage taking for demands. It's hostage taking as a highly efficient active shooter method. I want to conclude this episode by analyzing the last sentence in this article. Now, building up to it, they say to keep the surviving hostages as human shields. Keeping those alive is necessary as a delaying tactic. Allow the police to arrive and stage, crisis negotiators to get set up, media to arrive to capture the gory pictures and the gruesome details. But again, it's a delaying tactic. They've already established this is a suicide mission, and the jihadist knows that and accepts that. It's a way to prolong the terror. ISIS says in the last sentence, this is the ideal scenario. Ideal scenario is that they storm the location and he is killed as a shaheed, inshallah Allah, after having inflicted upon the kafir a just massacre. To break that down, they're saying that the ideal, the best case scenario is that law enforcement storms the location and kills the shaheed, the martyr. Inshallah, God willing, after inflicting upon the kafir, the non-believer, a just massacre, a death, a slaughter that they deserve because they do not believe. This is what ISIS believes, this is what Al-Qaeda believes, this is what the global jihadist, this is what the Islamic terrorist believes. This is how they speak and this is the way they understand. You must be ready to respond given this criteria. I hope this triggers some dialogue, some policy decisions and changes, some additional training in your department with your call processors, with your 911 dispatchers, with everybody along the chain to understand the importance of this change in tactics by ISIS. Until then, this is Holt Clark with Counterterrorism Roll Call. Be alert and be safe. Thanks for watching. Please visit our sponsor, patriotthreads.org, and stay tuned for a special offer from them. Would you do me a favor and hit the like button? And if you haven't yet, subscribe. If you want to know more about me, go to my website, follow me on Twitter, or just run me on NCIC. I'll see you next week on Counterterrorism Roll Call. Until then, be alert, be safe. PatriotThreads.org is apparel with a purpose. Patriot Threads offers state-themed, game day to outdoor lifestyle apparel, like the new line of Southern Trout shirts, and introducing the new Back the Blue shirts. All are 100% printed in the USA. Are you looking for a new, exciting, profitable fundraiser? PatriotThreads.org would love to help. Go to their website for details. Use promo code ROLLCALL at checkout and you can save 20% on the sale. And Patriot Threads will donate 20% of the profits to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund. PatriotThreads.org is a proud sponsor of the men and women of law enforcement.